The Bridal Bouquet. Jack Rabbit was to be married to Miss Bunny Rabbit, and all the animals for miles around were invited to the wedding and the feast. For days the family of Miss Bunny had been very busy bringing green things from Mr. Man's garden to decorate the house and make a nice breakfast for the guests. Little Pete Rabbit, Miss Bunny's brother, was the only one who did not enjoy getting ready for the wedding, for he did not like the idea of working and getting none of the good green things to eat. His father and mother went with him to Mr. Man's garden, and so little Pete had no chance to nibble even at the fresh lettuce or radishes or cabbage. "I'll be glad when this wedding is over," said Pete to Ted Squirrel. "All I do is work, and never a bite do I get of all the nice things I carry. And now I have got to walk ahead of Sister Bunny with a ring on a cabbage leaf, and I do not expect they will even let me eat the leaf after the ring is taken off of it." "Have they much to eat?" asked Ted Squirrel. "Much?" repeated Pete. "You never saw so much all at once in your life, Ted. Come with me and I will show you." Pete led the way to the pantry where all the food was stored, and Ted's eyes opened wide as he saw shelf after shelf filled with the good things to eat. "I think we might take a little without anyone knowing it," said Ted Squirrel. "We can come in here tonight after everybody is in bed and help ourselves." Pete Rabbit did not need anyone to urge him. He had looked longingly at the tempting food all day, but he had not thought of getting up at night to eat it. "Pete, come here this minute," called his mother. "Your sister has decided to have a bridal bouquet of lettuce and white radishes, and you run up to Mr. Man's garden and tell your father. He is up there working now." Away ran Pete and Ted Squirrel after him. They found Mr. Rabbit busily engaged in gathering beet tops to decorate the parlor. When he heard about the bouquet, he got 2 young heads of lettuce and some very handsome radishes and gave them to Pete. "Now mind you, do not nibble at those," he said. "Run home as fast as you can and do not stop on the way." Pete Rabbit loved better than anything young lettuce and little radishes, and he smacked his lips as he looked at those his father gave him. "You can take just 1 radish tonight," said Ted Squirrel, "and 1 leaf of the lettuce will never be missed. Besides that, Miss Bunny is too small to carry such a big bouquet, and you really ought to eat part of it." That night, when all was still and everything ready for the wedding, Ted Squirrel and Pete Rabbit tiptoed to the pantry. They forgot all about eating just a little, and when the daylight streamed in through the window, the pantry looked far from full. Ted Squirrel ran home, for he was invited to the wedding and knew his mother would call him early to dress. Pete had only just covered up his head when his mother awoke and told him he must get right up and begin to dress for the wedding. So poor Pete, feeling very uncomfortable and sleepy, had to obey. While he was dressing, a terrible cry was heard, and everybody ran to find Miss Bunny Rabbit in a faint right in front of the pantry door. Jack Rabbit threw water on her face, and pretty soon she opened her eyes. "Look," she said, pointing to the pantry. "We have been robbed, and my beautiful bridal bouquet is spoiled." "It must have been the bad young fox who lives over the hill," said her father. "Mr. Fox does not care for green food," said Jack Rabbit, looking very hard at Pete Rabbit. "Oh dear, dear, whatever shall I do?" cried Miss Bunny. "I shall have to be married without a bouquet, and what will the guests say?" Jack Rabbit tried to comfort her. They will say you are sweet and pretty, that a bouquet would have no chance beside you, my dear, he said. But Mother Rabbit came running to her daughter with a beautiful head of young cabbage, and while Miss Bunny declared that cabbages were carried last year and really were quite old style, she took it, and the wedding party started for the parlor. Pete had the ring on a cabbage leaf, but he did not walk very straight, and the time he reached the parlor door he gave a loud cry and dropped the leaf and ring, and, holding on to his stomach, he laid on the floor and rolled over and over, howling with pain. At the same time, Ted Squirrel began to cry, and for a few minutes the guests forgot all about the wedding, watching Ted and Pete. "It is just what I thought," said Jack Rabbit, taking Pete and Ted by their collars and dragging them out of the room. "These rascals ate Bunny's bouquet and the wedding breakfast, and now they are suffering for it." Ted and Pete were sick for some days, and when they were out, Pete said, "I think it is all foolishness having a wedding. When I am married, I shall go up to Mr. Man's garden and get a good breakfast and not have any guests." "Do you like your new brother?" asked Ted Squirrel. "I have not seen him since the wedding," replied Pete, "but somehow I feel he does not like me." "I'll like you after I give both of you rascals a good whipping," said Jack Rabbit, suddenly jumping from behind a bush and catching both by their collars as he shook them until their teeth rattled. "I hope I never have a new brother," cried Ted Squirrel. "I hope I have a brother I can whip whenever I get married," wailed Pete. "I can never whip Jack Rabbit. He is too big." "You can when you grow up," said Ted. "You will be as big as Jack Rabbit some day, and I will come around and help you." "You have helped me enough for a while," said Pete. "I'll be a good boy. I have been sick and got a whipping too, because I did what you told me to do." "That is always the way," said Ted, and he ran away. "You help a fellow, and then he blames you. I shall not help you again, Pete Rabbit." "I hope you won't. You have helped me enough for a while," answered Pete.